In studio today, we got Randy Miller sitting in for E. Woods, James Nelson Stewart, and the legendary Sam Rhines. Okay, I'm going to put everybody on the spot. We're going to get this thing started. Yo, Philly college basketball is hurting. It's hurting. Of course, we got Villanova, and we're not including them in that category. They have, I think, and let me see if anybody would disagree, they're a blue blood program at this point.
Yes, sir.
They're way up top 5, 6 in the country easily. So we're separating them. Mm-hmm. But here's my question. Are Drexel, St. Joe's, LaSalle, and Temple, are they witnessing what some would describe as the bottom of a competitive cycle, and we can just kind of naturally expect it to rebound and it'll improve over time? Or has college basketball kind of realigned and we all need to get used to a new reality? We're going to go.
I know a place. Ain't nobody crying. Ain't nobody worried. No. Ain't no smiling faces.
We're going to go with Sam Rhines first.
Well, I will say this. Even with Villanova, the last decade has pretty much been the same. A decade is a long time. You know, when you talk about 10 years of basketball, where have the schools been? You know, LaSalle has been down. St. Joe's has been down, even though they had a couple good years.
2 A-10 championships.
Yep.
2014, 2016.
But it's hard because when you're in transition, like Ash went through, it's going to take him time to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. G was there. He was waiting for his time. Now, he had it when he had all the transfers coming.
Garland, Galloway.
They got to the Sweet 16 and everything else. But it's tough because everybody's going through transition. Like Dumph was not the same Dumph he was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Even though he's a great coach, it gets harder and harder to recruit, you know, knowing that the local kids don't want to go to the local schools. Everybody, you know, it's this whole trend now of kids wanting to leave the area. And it's sad because 90% of them leave the area to come right back. And they're not the same
Not
place.
90. Not 90. A lot of them.
A lot of them.
This is a high number, though.
I don't think half of them do.
It's a high number. And I'm going to tell you what happens. Some of them we don't hear about because they go all the way down. They go to Division II or they go to junior college. They don't just stop at LaSalle, St. Joe's, and Temple, but they go all the way down. But if you look at the transfer rate over the last couple of years, we're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8 players transferring back to Big 5 schools. And this is almost a yearly thing here. And now all of a sudden we got some that's transferring out, and you know that's another subject in itself.
We'll get to that.
We'll
get to that. James, what do you think? Is this just a cycle or are things a little different here?
I think things are a little different here.
Why?
Well, when you think of the Big 5 and its heyday, there wasn't as many of, you know, external programs such as Penn State that offers a Big 10 conference and a Power 5 conference right there on the horizon, who brought a Philadelphia guy in as a coach. There, you know, you had personalities as coaches. John Chaney, who was, you know, one of the all-time greats. You know, you had Speedy Morris, you had Phil Martelli, you had legendary local names. Now, and that's not to take anything away from Ashley or Aaron McKee or, you know, the Billy at St. Joe's, you know, but it was different. And now with football, football is really the sport that moves college basketball also. So I think that, I'm not saying that we won't come back. I mean, that's, you know, we are a rich basketball area.
But it's been a structural shift.
Yes.
Yes.
Randy?
So I think there has been a structural shift. Like my man was saying, you know, football has, you know, been, you know, how people move, how universities move about now. They're, like before, when I was a child, Penn State and Rutgers were part of the Atlantic 10. They were part of the
West
Atlantic 10.
Virginia.
West Virginia was part of the Atlantic 10. And so you had those schools. And for much of my, as long as I've followed college basketball, Penn State wasn't even, remotely thought of as a national power or even a viable option for Philadelphia kids to go to, because to be quite frank, they weren't good. But now they've gotten good, and so now the lure of going, you're not too far away from your family and friends. You can drive about 3 hours, play in a top level arena, big conference, plenty of resources. It's hard to pass up, and now they're winning. And so what I'm saying is too, what these local schools are going to have to do is win, because that's going to get attractive to kids. But how do they win? If they can't get local kids, they got to go get kids outside of the city.
Well, one of the things I think we didn't mention was the big TV contract that the Big Ten has. They have a big television contract.
50 million. 50 million. You get a check for 50 million before you sell a parking pass, a hot dog, a ticket to any event. You start off with 50 million. Look, I think you're right, but I think it's not just Penn State in them. You got Rutgers. I was up there a week ago. Unbelievable.
Brand new
atmosphere. Penn State to your west. Maryland to your south. Now, Miami's had, 4 or 5 of our very best players over the last 5 years.
Region, yeah.
Davon Reed, Jaquan, Lonnie, Isaiah Wong.
Yeah.
Virginia came up here and got DeAndre Hunter.
Miami had Chris Likes as well from D.C.
I mean, these guys are plucked at, man. You got Seton Hall is really good, right behind Villanova. You still got Villanova. Pitt's trying to get their act together. It feels like the local mid-majors are getting really squeezed.
But here's my thing, too. Also, back, previously, when under the Chaney era, Temple was in the A-10. And so, in my opinion, the AAC is now like the Conference USA. It's a very athletic conference. You're in a dogfight, damn it, almost every game. So whereas, some A-10 games against Temple, that matchup zone slowed teams down. Teams couldn't figure it out. It's a different ball game now. You're playing against other athletes. The amount of in-conference wins, aren't the same. So I don't know, man.
But I've seen, and all of you have seen, I've seen Temple go to 5 Elite Eights. I've seen St. Joe's be number 1 to go to Elite Eight. We just saw LaSalle go Sweet 16 not that long ago. Sam, what do they have to do to get back at that level? If they got to make some moves, what moves should be made?
It's 2 things, Dell. Local talent has to get better. I mean, right now, the local talent is not as rich as it was years ago, where LaSalle could take the 3rd or 4th best player at Roman, and he'd still be a solid player in the Big Five. Now, and then the public league is just, I don't know what's going on with the public league, but it's definitely not what it used to be, even though the charter schools have made it a lot better. Moving forward, a school like LaSalle, Temple, St. Joe's, more or less, more than Drexel or Villanova or Penn, are all recruiting the same kind of kids. So when you have a lesser pool, then you have the same kind of kids, and then all of a sudden you hear Bowling Green picks up 2 kids.
2, 3.
3. Yeah.
And then, and these are all mid-level schools that LaSalle, St. Joe's, and maybe even Temple should have been looking at the kids.
Even Riders sneaks in.
Riders took a couple mid-majors. And this was what I'm saying. Sometimes the coaches and the area coaches are not truly looking at the kids the way they should. And I look at it 2 different ways. Number one, I think the scouting reports aren't the same as they were years ago. They're not the same. A little bit different. I think there's pretty much going to be a change of the guard pretty soon, where, a lot of the major scouting services are now older now. And they don't travel as far. They don't go out of the region
as often.
Yeah, and it's no fault of their own. I mean, these are very good guys, good at what they do, but it's hard to evaluate the local talent because we only have one event, which is down at Frio, that allows us to all compete against each other. So we don't always see who can do what against who because there's no platform.
Well, I think what Sam brought up is, we're talking about an era when the Big Five was at its best, where you could go to McGonigal Hall and you could see all of the top area players going against each other. So what we had,
But only Temple could see that. They ain't let everybody in there,
well,
Sam-
Hats and hoodies in the summertime. that was Big Sam. Big Sam had to hide in the corner with his Apple Jam.
What's supposed to be in there?
But we are missing guys like Big Sam Rhines, who would go everywhere and see all of the talent and would keep a guy like Rab Towns or Paul Burke or go get a Romaine Hayward. But he would travel all over these places and play in little gyms to see guys like that. I think we need somebody who, is on the ground floor. Somebody like let's just say, just throwing a name out there, like a John Moscow, who's helped build like a Newman Goretti and who has now built Archbishop Wood. You need somebody who sees a whole bunch of these kids.
You trying to give John somebody a job, man? That what you're doing?
No.
Must be in the suburbs.
What do you think, Rand?
No, I think it's a multitude of things, because if we're comparing back then to now, structurally things have just changed, like you said. Like the public league was
a different ball game.
It's just a totally different landscape across the board, and starting in high school. The public league has a lot of teams now. In my opinion, there's definitely some talent there, but it's a lot of teams. It's hard to cover now. It's hard to cover. There's just too many, and it's watered down. You see, the top teams are in a certain division, but one person can't go and see all those teams every single season.
The last 4 years, you could have really followed like one team.
You could not, or could
you could?
Oh, that's a
In
fact.
the pub.
That's a fact.
I mean, he had 5, 6 of them.
Yeah, he did.
Now it's
Look in
kind
the
of spread out a little
Now,
bit.
yes. Say again.
The suburbs. If you take a kid from the suburbs and move him into the city, it's not quite a city team anymore. You know what I mean? And we got to keep it real, because it's not the same. Regentrification in Philadelphia.
You're not counting Norristown, man.
No. It's not a city. Hey, you can't. or out Darby.
Paulsboro.
No, yeah. Paulsboro, been there, did that. And it's tough, because we tried not to go down that road. But even if you look at the Catholic League, it's a lot of suburban kids playing in the Catholic League. But yet we consider it all city.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily true. I mean, Nelson can identify a lot of these kids we saw grow up in a suburban league, and they ventured off and to the Catholic League, which we praise, as one of the best leagues. But is it the best league anymore? Like, is it going up or is it going down? Now, we know individually they got some of the best players, but we got to start looking at other situations. Like, you look at an Ali Brown from School of the Future. We might not look at him compared to other Catholic League kids, but Ali Brown is very proficient at what he does.
That's an interesting name. I like Ollie Brown, and people have told me that I was overly optimistic about Ollie Brown, and I wondered why he hasn't gotten a chance with one of the better or more well-known clubs here. It's weird, maybe his dad might have ruffled some feathers or something. I don't know. That kid could play, and I agree. But just think about the Coatesville kids. It's like 5, 6 of them, all guards that are all Division I players.
All of them
could play. All of them could
all
play.
of them
Numbers,
dogs.
let's think about it. Numbers don't lie. I was telling the coach the other day, he came into my gym, he says, what do you think about Jig, and what do you think about this guy and that guy? I said, listen, I'm going to go back to Billy Owens. Billy Owens is one of the best players ever in the state of Pennsylvania, suburban, city, Pittsburgh to Philly, because his numbers don't lie. Numbers in high school, numbers in college, numbers even in the pros.
I mean, it's it's like him and Wilt, and
Train, we can throw names out there, but
yeah,
that's what I'm saying about Jig. Jig numbers don't lie. So when LaSalle says to me, should we recruit him? You tell me anybody that scored over 2,000 points in high school didn't have success at the next level except for Jaquan Newton.
Well, he
LaSalle is recruiting him. LaSalle gave him offer
Wait,
last
Jaquan
December.
Newton scored over 1,000 ACC points.
Yeah, he's
He was
successful.
6th man of the year in the ACC.
He had a good career.
We're saying that's not a success.
No, that's successful.
We
But
some
that's
hard
not
judges here.
successful for a 2,000-point scorer
In the Catholic League?
whom everybody says was one of the best players coming from that particular school. Newman has a rich group.
Quan is my man. You know, Quan ain't
talent
he
coming
ain't the
through.
weightlifting, stay late kind of guy. You know, Quan like nice clothes. He like nice women. You know, Quan lived his life.
I'm not mad.
And he still got over 1,000 points
Yeah.
and play. And he hit that shot against North Carolina. You can't take it away from me.
Can't
man.
take that
He,
away.
what I'm saying is he could have made a better choice where he could have potentially could have been a pro if he would have made a better choice.
I don't think he was going to ever do all that lifting and staying late. And
I
all
don't,
that. He
but it's
he
like some
to
people.
live.
Some people let you get away with that in college. They let you be you if you're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And Miami is Miami. I'm you know.
He enjoyed
live on a
Miami.
Sunday night.
Quan is a legend.
I
He
seen him a
enjoyed
couple
himself
times in the
down there.
lobby.
Well, look, let's do this.
Somebody help